It's time now for Dynaman. 5 good-looking Japanese friends from all walks of life.
Here's where we start getting into the classics. Hirohisa Soda had tried some new things with Goggle 5, and a lot of it was met with success even if he hadn't implemented those ideas to their fullest potential. Goggle 5 had been an absolute hit with children, and that cemented Soda's role as lead writer for the next season. The question was, what should the theme be? Initially, the creators wanted to pair the success of Super Sentai with Japan's love of baseball, creating a baseball-themed team named Kagaku Sentai V-Leaguer. Somewhere along the line though, they decided that the baseball motif wasn't cool enough, so they redid the theme for the entire season. A lot of the designs were already set in stone, so the initial baseball motif still made it into the season in various ways. Instead of baseball, the creators wanted a team that would represent an explosion of spirit, as if their spirits were exploding like dynamite. And that's how we got... So obviously, with a name like Dynaman, you're gonna expect more explosions, and Dynaman definitely lives up to its name in that regard. The series producer Takayuki Suzuki has even said that the staff for the season used the highest quantity of gunpowder. A far smaller change was what had the biggest impact this season. Due to Japanese news increasing its time, the Super Sentai time slot was shortened from 30 to 25 minutes. This 5-minute reduction forced the creators to tighten the pacing and rely less on stock footage for each episode. Ultimately, this subtle but important change had the largest effect on the season as a whole, and would be the standard episode length for the Super Sentai series moving forward. Dynaman begins with the Evolution Empire proclaiming their intent to conquer the world and force all of humanity into slavery. The Evolution-tailed beast race emerged when a meteor hit prehistoric Earth and tunneled into the core of the planet, and the Evolution clan arose from evolving underground. The Empire runs on a brutal caste system where one's status is determined by the number of tails he or she possesses. Their leader, Emperor Atan, has 9 tails, and it's said that once a member of the Evolution clan obtains a 10th tail, they will obtain eternal life and incredible powers. 15 years prior to the beginning of the series, the mad scientist Dr. Toyama created a retro gene that would allow the rapid evolution of whoever it was used on. In normal humans, this would only result in small mutations to different body parts, but within the Evolution-tailed beast clan, this would allow them to grow more tails than they would naturally have. When the Evolution army caught wind of Dr. Toyama's creation, they invaded his lab and slaughtered the people inside in an attempt to get their hands on the retro gene. Toyama destroyed his creations and vanished, leaving the Evolution Empire empty-handed and with no way of recreating his research. In the modern day, an aspiring inventor known as Hokuto Dan receives an invitation from a respected and well-known scientist, Dr. Kyutaro Umeno, but along the way he sees a monster attacking innocent civilians. This was the first monster in the invasion of the surface world by the Evolution army, and he's able to repel it with the help of 4 other aspiring inventors who received the same invitation from Dr. Umeno. When they reach their destination, they're surprised to find out that it's a kindergarten, which is actually a disguise for Dr. Umeno's secret base, the Umeno Invention Center. Umeno has recruited the 5 young inventors to become Kagaku Sentai Dynaman, to fight the monsters that the Evolution army will be sending to attack humanity. Hokuto Dan becomes Dyna Red. He's a master swordsman, a trained martial artist, and a champion motorcyclist, and he dreams of inventing an engine that doesn't cause pollution. He lost his mother when he was young, so he empathizes with children who have lost their parents. He's different from previous Red Rangers in that he's not portrayed as a perfect leader. He actually does get himself into trouble often because he gets in over his head, which leads to some pretty funny jokes at his expense. That said, he's still a very stereotypical Red Ranger character who is stoic, headstrong, and responsible when the situation demands. Ryu Hoshikawa is chosen to be Dyna Black. He's an astronomer who wants to make first contact with aliens, and he also happens to be the incredibly skilled descendant of a clan of ninjas. That particular training is at odds with his personality though, because he tends to be loud and hammy instead of quiet and stealthy, you know, like a ninja should be. Wait a minute. A loud and distinctly un-ninja-like ninja fights against a group of villains that want to create a 10-tailed beast for the purposes of world domination? Where have I heard this before?
I'm not gonna run away! I never go back on my word! That's my ninja! My ninja way!
Setting that aside, Yosuke Shima is selected to be Dyna Blue. He's the clear kid appeal character, and he's a swimmer and surfer who loves researching marine biology. And he hopes to one day invent artificial gills for humans to explore the sea. Kosaku Nango, who takes the role of Dyna Yellow, is a Japanese cowboy who loves botany, and he wants to improve plants to develop new foods and flowers for the world. He's sometimes the comic relief, but to much less of a degree than the previous Yellow Sentai hero. Finally, Rei Tachibana rounds out the team as Dyna Pink. She's an animal scientist who wants to invent a device to allow people to talk to animals, despite her rather ironic fear of cats. Don't underestimate her though. She's a master fencer and she's able to hold her own against one of the Evolution Empire's generals by herself. Mikyu went over so well with audiences last season that Rei was another step in the direction of capable female Sentai heroines, and she's one of the best Sentai heroines we've ever gotten. She's calm, cool, and crazy skilled with a sword, making her the de facto cool girl archetype that would be used in Super Sentai seasons to this day. They are mentored by Dr. Kyutaro Umeno, a playful and almost comical man who turns into a stern, almost drill sergeant-like presence when it comes to battling the forces of evolution. He runs the Umeno Invention Center, an inventor's hideout that's hidden under a kindergarten that he manages, which becomes the Dynaman base. Their enemies are the villainous Evolution Empire, led by Emperor Aton, his loyal retainer Kar, and his son Megiddo. Emperor Aton is the ruthless leader of the Evolution Empire. He's a social Darwinist who believes that the strong should rule over the weak, and lords his powers over everyone beneath him, although he still has a twisted code of honor that he adheres to. Kar serves as the loyal general to Emperor Aton. As Aton's faithful servant and chief military strategist, General Kar is invaluable to Aton's violent campaign against humanity. Megiddo is the son of Emperor Aton and the crown prince of the Evolution Empire. He and General Kar are normally the ones that lead the attacks against both the Dynaman team and humanity in general. He's incredibly proud of his 5 tails, which of course leads to a fierce rivalry with Hokuto when the latter manages to cut off one of his tails in their first battle. After being repelled by Dynaman a few times, Princess Chimera joins the Evolution army to help their invasion. She's Megiddo's cousin and has magical powers that are bestowed to her by her 4 tails, and she wears a metal bikini that really shows off her curves.
Feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Duh! Stupid sexy Chimera! Soon it becomes apparent that the Dynaman team was way more than General Aton and his subordinates had bargained for, and their attempts to convert humans into their own species ended in failure, so they decide to just kill all humans instead. To do this, Emperor Aton goes to his last resort, and enlists General Zenobia to help him. Zenobia had previously been buried in the deepest prison of the Evolution Empire, the Millennium Cave, for attempting to usurp the throne from Emperor Aton, which she definitely has the power to do. She has 7 tails, which is less than Aton, but she has a shrewdness that Aton lacks. Her first order of business is to cut off all of Megiddo's tails and banish him into the Millennium Cave for his incompetence. Megiddo had been suffering various defeats at the hands of the Dynaman team, and lost the confidence of his father. Little does Aton know, this exile is actually a plan by Zenobia to sow dissent and distrust within his own ranks. Megiddo swears revenge, both on the Dynaman for disgracing him and on the Evolution Empire for his disinheritance. Zenobia then proves her brilliant cruelty when she uncovers the Dynaman base and attacks them. She's unable to destroy the base, but since the Dynaman operate out of a kindergarten, they opt to abandon the base and move to a new location rather than put the children in danger. Meanwhile, the Evolution army is dealing with a problem of their own. Megiddo has vanished from the Millennium Cave, a feat considered impossible. And to make things worse, a strange warrior has started attacking their forces. This warrior calls himself the Dark Knight, and makes a name for himself by stealing the Emperor's personal sword, the Teoken, fighting Zenobia to a standstill, and generally uprooting and disrupting the Evolution Empire's plans. He also fights the Dynaman team on multiple occasions and has a particular interest in fighting Hokuto one-on-one. Eventually, General Kar makes a terrifying discovery, a clue to the location of the retro genes that he thought had been destroyed. The Dark Knight and Zenobia then call a truce and join forces with the singular goal of destroying Emperor Aton. The Dynaman then find out that the creator of the retro gene, the mad scientist Dr. Toyama, and Dr. Umeno, their mentor, is actually the same person. Dr. Toyama is the real name of their mentor, Dr. Umeno, and it was he who created the retro genes that the Evolution Empire have been trying so hard to obtain. The attack that brought tragedy into his life made him hate his own research, and he hid the genes, then changed his name to start a new life. Dr. Umeno manages to destroy the genes, but he's captured by the strongest monster General Carr has created, the Computer Dragon, and he's taken away to recreate his retro genes for Emperor Atan. The Dark Knight and Zenobia have other plans though, and they hack the Computer Dragon to replace the captured Dr. Umeno with an explosive clone. When the clone explodes in the presence of Emperor Atan, he becomes enraged at Carr and demands that he find the real Umeno. General Carr finds Dr. Umeno, the Dynaman team, along with the Dark Knight and Zenobia, and a massive three-way battle ensues with the Dynaman team throwing all their attacks at General Carr. He shrugs off all of their attacks at first, but eventually succumbs to his injuries and dies. Atan, realizing how loyal Carr had been, pays his respects and swears vengeance on Dynaman. The Dark Knight forces Dr. Umeno to recreate the retro genes, and utilizes a machine to allow Zenobia to gain her last 3 tails to overthrow Emperor Atan. Zenobia does grow the tails she needs, but her body becomes racked with pain. The Dark Knight then reveals that he had been playing her all along, and the machine did grant her the power she desired, but only for a fleeting moment as it also causes irreversible cell death. The Dark Knight then gloats victoriously as Zenobia's body tears itself apart. The Dynaman team arrives to save Dr. Umeno, and it's revealed that the Dark Knight was actually Megiddo all along, working against both Dynaman and the Evolution Empire to weaken both sides. He fights Atan in a deathmatch and wins, proving once and for all that the Evolution Empire's tail-based caste system was flawed and regressive. Emperor Atan is both impressed and proud of his son's strength and cunning, and names him and Chimera the successors of the Evolution Empire before he dies. Megiddo's first act as emperor is to banish Dynaman into the Millennium Cave, where they are trapped with only the water dripping from the rocks above for sustenance. The situation is dire, and the team are at death's door. Dr. Umeno uses the Dynaman wrist changers to find their location and manages to free them before they starve to death. And they immediately suit up and go after Megiddo and the Evolution Empire. After a hard-fought battle, Megiddo and Chimera retreat to their ship, only for the team to blow them out of the sky, ending the menace of the Evolution Empire once and for all. With the threat past, Dr. Umeno is finally able to put his past behind him and devote himself fully to running his kindergarten and making children happy. And the Dynaman team return to being inventors, continuing to chase their dreams. Dynaman had a really great plot, and it really upped the quality of the storytelling by a lot. It's not even just that the overall story arc was better paced and more interesting. Even the filler episode provided important context and backstory to help flesh out the plot. Some episodes deal with the wider implications of the villain's plans. Releasing a mosquito monster that paralyzes people sounds like a petty and childish plan, until you find out that a man that's been paralyzed is helpless to prevent his daughter from drowning. Other episodes provide characterization for either the heroes or the villains. In one, Megiddo and Chimera invade the home of a couple that turn out to be spies who were sent to the surface world 10 years ago as sleeper agents. In that span of time, they had a child who believes that he's a normal human boy. When Chimera hears about this, she immediately believes they've gone native and want to get rid of them, but Megiddo stops her, reasoning that it was necessary to keep their cover. Episodes like this that depict more layers to the characters' personalities, as well as making the villains and their subordinates less morally reprehensible, really flesh out the characters in subtle ways that previous seasons almost never did. It's something that Super Sentai gets better at as time goes on, but Dynaman deserves credit for being this first season to really start this trend. Accompanying this shift to a more multifaceted storytelling method is more mature content. Simply put, the previous audience for Sentai was already aging out. There wasn't any guarantee that the next generation of kids would replace them, so it seems that the creators decided to cast a wider net. What I mean by that is that the sex appeal for this season was increased considerably. It's nothing too scandalous, but the obvious one is Chimera, with her bikini armor. In one episode, Rei and Chimera fight each other and they end up causing more damage to their clothes than to each other. In another episode, Ryu accidentally stumbles on Chimera bathing, and she leaves her clothes behind when she runs away. Rei then wears Chimera's clothes, supposedly to prank Dr. Umeno, but we all know what the real reason is. Speaking of clothes, this marks the first year that Super Sentai started using spandex for its costumes. Before, it was all cloth jumpsuits, but the switch to spandex really made the costumes look cleaner and sleeker, and gave the teams more vibrant colors that made them stand out against the more muted and drab colors of the villains. The Dynaman suits are an improvement over last season, but that's not a very high bar. You can still see the baseball motif in the Dynaman suits with the helmets that look like baseball helmets and the patterns that are styled to have a jersey-like appearance. I like that they went with a team emblem on the suits. It looks far better than the team name across the chest like they had in earlier designs. Their weapons and equipment look far better than last season too, and their transformation devices have a simple but high-tech design aesthetic that's appropriate for the theme of the season. The villains and monster designs are again a step up from previous seasons. The costumes for the villains, particularly Megiddo, look great. In past seasons, face characters usually got the short end of the stick, but they made Megiddo's armor really intricate and cool. The team's mecha, the Dyna Robo, is yet another design evolution from previous seasons. It's still a 3-part combining robot that flies out from an airship called the Dai Jupiter. The Dyna Mach forms the head, the Dyna Mobile forms the arms and torso, and the Dyna Gary forms the legs and feet. Honestly, it looks pretty similar to the Goggle Robo from last season, except with a bigger sword. So in that respect, the mecha design was pretty disappointing, but at least it didn't look worse. The music is what you would expect from a Sentai season at this point, but Dynaman seems to have more vocal songs than previous seasons, which are hit or miss to be honest. Dynaman actually received a dub for the West, but it was a gag dub in the same vein of something like Samurai Pizza Cats, with music by Bon Jovi, Huey Lewis, and ZZ Top, if you can believe that.
Wushi, their leader, is Dyna Red. Cuba, able to leap tall trees, is Dyna Black. Frankie, the human outboard motor, is Dyna Blue. Cowboy, the slow-thinking weapons expert, is Dyna Yellow. And their main squeeze slow gin is Dyna Pink.
Ah, the 80s. It was a different time. So as you can see, Dynaman was a big success in terms of how it improved the Super Sentai formula, and I wholeheartedly recommend it to anyone who wants a Showa-era Super Sentai with less of the usual bloat you see in earlier seasons. Dynaman marks the beginning of a golden age for the Showa era of Super Sentai. And with Hirohisa Soda still at the helm, this series would soar onto greater heights. Next time, we'll delve deep into one of the most celebrated series in Super Sentai, Chodenshi Bioman. If you like what you saw in this video, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. Not to mention the bell notification so that you'll know whenever I make an update. I mean, you reached the end of the video, so I'm sure you saw something that you liked. As always, the Super Sentai overview is a passion project, so I appreciate any and all support that I get. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, yo!